I never thought my marriage would lead me here, but what happened that night changed everything. I still remember the way the air felt, thick, heavy, like something unseen was pressing against my chest. It wasn't just the humidity of the evening or the dim golden lights flickering in the distance. No, it was something much deeper, something that sent a slow, uneasy chill down my spine. You see, when you marry someone, you trust them. You believe in the life you're building together. You tell yourself that no matter how hard things get, how distant you might feel, how invisible you might become, that at least you're safe. That the walls of your home, the vows you exchanged, the years you spent side by side, they mean something. They protect you. But what if I told you that the people we trust the most, the people we lean on, the ones who swear they'd never hurt us, are the very same ones who can destroy us in ways we never imagined? I used to believe that love was enough. That if you gave your heart to someone fully, they would guard it. That if you stayed faithful, if you were patient, if you tried hard enough, everything would work out. But life doesn't work like that. Because the truth is, sometimes the cracks in a marriage don't come from loud fights or slammed doors. Sometimes they form slowly, quietly, like hairline fractures in glass, so small at first that you don't even see them. And by the time you do, it's already too late. I should have seen the signs. The distance. The neglect. The way I felt more like a shadow in my own home than a person. But I ignored it. I told myself I was being dramatic. That this was normal. That every couple goes through rough patches. But what happened next? That one night? That moment when everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my husband, and myself shattered into a million little pieces? Nothing could have prepared me for it. And the worst part? It didn't come from some stranger. It didn't come from someone lurking in the dark, waiting to ruin my life. No, it came from someone I never would have suspected. Someone who looked me in the eyes, who smiled, who made me feel something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. And that's where the real danger begins. Before I tell you the full story, I need to ask, have you ever felt invisible in your own relationship? Have you ever had a moment where you questioned everything you thought you knew about the person you loved? If you have, let me know in the comments. And if you love real-life shocking infidelity stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga, and hit that notification bell, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. I used to believe in the kind of love that could withstand anything. The kind that didn't fade, no matter how many years passed. The kind that held firm through busy schedules, stress, exhaustion, through all the little things that chip away at a marriage. But love changes. People change. And somewhere along the way, my husband and I lost something. We were once inseparable. The kind of couple who laughed at inside jokes, who stayed up talking until the early hours of the morning, who couldn't keep their hands off each other. I remember the way he used to look at me, like I was the most important thing in the world. Like I was his world. But that was years ago. Now, when I look at him, I see a man who barely sees me back. A man buried in his work, in endless phone calls, emails, late nights at the office. A man who comes home, eats in silence, and falls asleep on the couch before I can even say goodnight. He tells me he's tired. That he's doing this for us, for our future. That I should understand. And maybe I should. Maybe that's what a good wife does, understands. Supports. Waits. But how long is a person supposed to wait before they stop feeling like a wife and start feeling like a ghost? I don't even know when I started feeling invisible. Maybe it was the first time he missed dinner without calling. Maybe it was the night he forgot our anniversary. Maybe it was every time he looked through me instead of at me. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. That we were just going through a rough patch. That it wasn't personal. But loneliness has a way of creeping in, settling deep into your bones. It makes you second-guess yourself. It makes you wonder if you're still the same person you used to be. If you're still beautiful. If you're still wanted. And that's when he noticed me. It was at a corporate party, one of those events where everyone pretends to be more important than they really are, where laughter is too loud, and handshakes mean nothing. I didn't even want to go. I knew how it would be, me standing alone in a room full of people, my husband lost in conversations that didn't include me. But he insisted. said it was important. So I went. I put on my best dress, fixed my hair, painted on a smile. And for the first hour, everything was exactly as I expected. I sipped my drink in the corner while my husband worked the room. I watched him shake hands, nod along to conversations I didn't understand. I watched him light up, more engaged, more alive than I'd seen him in months. Not once did he look my way. And then he did. His boss. I'd met him before, of course. He was the kind of man you didn't forget, charming, powerful, the kind of presence that made people stand a little straighter when he walked into a room. There was something effortless about him, something magnetic. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a man who knew people, who knew how to read them, how to make them feel seen. And that night, he saw me. He walked over, glass in hand, and smiled like we shared some kind of secret. Like he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Enjoying yourself?" he asked. I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. "Not exactly my scene. Your husband's a busy man." His eyes flicked toward where my husband stood, deep in conversation, oblivious to everything else. Too busy, it seems. I should have defended him. I should have said something. But instead, I just looked down at my drink, suddenly unable to find the words. The boss took a slow sip of his whiskey, watching me. "A woman like you shouldn't be standing in the corner alone." It was a simple statement, harmless on the surface. But something about the way he said it, low, smooth, deliberate, sent a shiver down my spine. I should have walked away. I should have ended the conversation before it even started. But I didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, someone was looking at me like I mattered. I don't know how long we stood there, just talking. At first, it was nothing, small talk, light laughter, the kind of conversation that fills empty spaces at events like these. But with him, it felt different. It felt easy. He asked me questions, real ones, not the polite kind people ask just to be nice. He wanted to know about me, not just as someone's wife, but as a person. And I answered. I told him things I hadn't said out loud in a long time. About my work, my interests, how I used to paint, but hadn't touched a brush in years. How I missed long walks and deep conversations. How I sometimes felt like I was fading into the background of my own life. And he listened. Really listened. There was no looking at his phone, no distracted nodding, no impatient glances over my shoulder like he had somewhere else to be. He was fully present, eyes locked on mine, as if I was the most interesting person in the room. And then, slowly, the conversation shifted. "You have a way about you," he said, his voice lower now, more intimate. "Like you're carrying the weight of something no one else sees." I swallowed hard. My pulse quickened. I opened my mouth to say something, to brush it off, to pretend his words didn't send a slow heat through my chest. But I couldn't find the words. He leaned in just slightly, his eyes searching mine. "You deserve to be seen." The air felt different now, thicker, heavier. I told myself it was just talk. Just a meaningless exchange, a moment of kindness from a man who knew how to read people. But then it happened. His hand, warm, steady, brushed against mine. A fleeting touch, innocent at first. But instead of pulling away, he let it linger, just for a second longer than necessary. That second stretched between us, charged, unspoken. A spark. A question. A door cracked open. And I didn't know if I wanted to step through or slam it shut. I glanced toward my husband. He was across the room, deep in discussion, laughing at something someone said. He hadn't looked for me once. He had no idea. No idea that just feet away, something was shifting. Something was changing. I pulled my hand back, cleared my throat, laughed awkwardly, as if I could break whatever this was with forced lightness. But the look in his eyes told me he knew. He had seen something in me I wasn't ready to admit. And deep down, beneath the guilt and confusion, beneath the years of feeling unseen, a part of me liked it. I barely spoke on the way home. My husband was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other scrolling through messages on his phone at every red light. He was still buzzing from the night, going on about some deal he had just secured, about how important tonight had been for his career. I nodded when it seemed appropriate, murmured something supportive when he paused. But my mind wasn't there. It was back there. Back at the party. Back in that moment. Back with him. I could still feel the ghost of his touch on my hand, that electric second where everything between us had shifted. I could still hear his voice, low and smooth, wrapping around those words that hadn't just been words. You deserve to be seen. A harmless statement. Just talk. Just nothing. So why did it feel like everything? I told myself it was meaningless. Just friendly conversation. A moment of kindness, nothing more. But deep down, I knew better. Because a married woman doesn't replay a harmless conversation over and over like this. A faithful wife doesn't close her eyes and feel another man's presence lingering in the air around her. And yet, I did. I kept telling myself I was imagining it. That I was just starved for attention. That any woman, left in the dark long enough, would start reaching for even the smallest flicker of light. That was all it was. Wasn't it? I glanced over at my husband. He hadn't noticed my silence. He hadn't noticed me at all. When we pulled into the driveway, he let out a sigh, stretched his arms. Long night, he muttered. I'm exhausted. And just like that, he was out of the car, already pulling off his tie as he walked inside. No glance in my direction. No hand on my back. Not even a casual, "You okay?" As if I wasn't even there. I followed him inside, feeling the weight of something heavy settle onto my chest. He tossed his jacket over the chair, loosened his shirt, and checked his phone again. Did you have a good time? I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be. Yeah, it was important for me to be there, he said, barely looking up. Glad you came too. That was it. Not, how was your night? Not, did you have fun? Not, you looked beautiful tonight. Just glad you came too. Like I was an accessory. Like I was a piece of the evening, no different than the expensive wine or the polished speeches. I swallowed hard. Forced a smile. Yeah, it was nice. He nodded, already unbuttoning his shirt as he headed for the bedroom. I stood there, staring at the spot where he had just been. This was my marriage. My life. My reality. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt like I had woken up from something. I had spent so long convincing myself that this was normal. That love just looked like this after a while. That loneliness was just a part of it. But tonight had reminded me of something. Something I had almost forgotten. What it felt like to be wanted. I shook my head, trying to clear the thought. This was dangerous. Stupid. I loved my husband. Didn't I? I curled up in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his steady breathing as he drifted into sleep within minutes. I wanted to reach for him. I wanted to tell him how I felt, how I had been feeling for so long. I wanted him to see me again. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew how the conversation would go. He would say he was tired. That we would talk later. That I was overthinking things. And so, I lay there in silence, feeling more alone than I ever had before. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I wondered, was he thinking about me tonight, too? Because I was still thinking about him. The first text came 2 days after the party. It was simple. Harmless. Hope you made it home safe. It was nice talking to you. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. There was no reason not to respond. No reason to read anything into it. Yes, thank you. It was nice talking to you too. I hit send before I could think too much about it. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, another message. You have a way of making people feel comfortable. It's refreshing. And then another. I bet your husband tells you all the time how lucky he is. I hesitated before replying. The words felt loaded, like they were teetering on the edge of something dangerous. He's busy. Work keeps him occupied. A pause. Then his response. A shame. If you were mine, I don't think I'd be able to focus on anything else. I should have ended it there. Should have ignored it, let it disappear into the void of unread messages. But I didn't. Because a part of me liked it. And maybe that was the worst part. The messages kept coming. Casual at first. Friendly. But slowly, they shifted. The compliments became more personal. The words lingered a little longer in my mind. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just enjoying harmless attention. But attention has a way of making you forget what's right and what's wrong. Then came the invitation. Coffee? Just as friends. I stared at it for too long. I knew what this was. I knew what I was doing the moment I started typing back. Sure, just as friends. But we both knew better. The coffee shop was small, tucked away from the busy streets. I was nervous, but the moment I saw him, the nerves melted into something else. Anticipation. Excitement. I shouldn't have felt that way. He smiled when I sat down. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure either. The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken meaning. We talked. About everything. About nothing. About life, dreams, regrets. And at some point, I stopped feeling guilty. Because for the first time in years, I felt seen. The retreat came weeks later. A luxury resort, all expenses paid, a weekend designed for networking and relaxation. My husband insisted I come. Said it would be good for me. That I should get out more. The irony wasn't lost on me. The first night, he barely noticed me. Too busy shaking hands, nodding along to conversations about deals and investments. And then, like clockwork, he found me. You look like you could use a break, he murmured. He wasn't wrong. We slipped away from the crowd, away from the noise, away from him. He led me through the resort grounds, pointing out things I hadn't noticed before. The private villas. The hidden garden. The quiet. The air was thick with something unspoken. Tell me, he said, his voice lower now, smoother. When was the last time someone made you feel special? I swallowed hard. I should have walked away. I should have said this isn't right. But I didn't. A storm was rolling in. The wind picked up, the sky darkened, the distant rumble of thunder filling the silence between us. Come on, he said, leading me into a small pavilion, just as the rain started falling. It was too close. Too intimate. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. He reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from my face. His fingers lingered, warm against my skin. I looked up at him. And for a moment, just one, we hovered on the edge of something irreversible. Everything in me screamed to pull away. But I didn't move. Not until the sound of voices in the distance shattered the moment. I took a step back, breath unsteady. We should go, I whispered. His eyes searched mine, unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. But as we walked back, my body still humming from the almost, from the what if. I knew this wasn't over. The rooftop was quiet. The city stretched below, glittering under the night sky, the hum of distant traffic filling the space between moments. The party was still going on downstairs, laughter, clinking glasses, the sound of conversations blending together like background noise in a movie. And, just like always, my husband was buried in it. I had watched him all night, moving from one group to the next, shaking hands, laughing at the right moments, never once looking for me. I wasn't surprised. I had stopped waiting for him to notice me a long time ago. So I slipped away. I didn't even know where I was going at first. I just needed air, needed space, needed to be somewhere other than there, watching him be present for everyone except me. And then I felt it. That presence. Before I even turned, I knew. He was there. I heard the soft click of his shoes against the floor, the subtle shift in the air as he moved closer. You always seem to be alone, he murmured. I let out a breath, staring at the skyline. I'm used to it. Silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that says everything words won't. I turned to him, and the look in his eyes stole the air from my lungs. Dark. Intense. Undeniable. We weren't dancing around this anymore. We weren't pretending. His gaze traveled over my face, slow and deliberate, as if memorizing every inch. And then, softer this time, like a secret, you deserve better. The words hit me in a place I didn't know was still raw. Maybe it was the way he said it. Maybe it was the way I had been waiting so long to hear something like that. Or maybe it was because, for the first time, I believed it. I swallowed hard. This is dangerous. I know. We should stop. His eyes flickered. Do you want to? I opened my mouth, closed it. My heart was hammering, my hands trembling at my sides. I should have walked away. I should have. But when he stepped closer, when I felt the warmth of him, the undeniable pull, the weight of everything unsaid pressing between us, I didn't move. Not when his hand brushed against my arm. Not when his fingers trailed up, slow and deliberate, to my jaw. Not when he leaned in. And then, his lips met mine. A kiss. Not tentative. Not hesitant. Deep. Consuming. The kind that steals the breath from your lungs, that makes you forget where you are, who you are, what you should be doing. And I kissed him back. For one blinding, reckless moment, nothing else existed. Not my husband. Not my marriage. Not the consequences. Just the rush, the heat, the feeling of being wanted. Of being seen. And then a sound. The sharp inhale of breath. The click of heels against the rooftop floor. Someone was there. My stomach dropped. My pulse spiked, a dizzying wave of panic crashing over me. I pulled away, breathless, heart slamming against my ribs. I turned and met a pair of wide, shocked eyes. A coworker, a woman from my husband's office. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. She had seen. She had seen. I couldn't breathe. What had I done? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. The shock, the hesitation. The way she had frozen, eyes darting between us, lips slightly parted, as if she was trying to convince herself she hadn't just seen what she saw. But she had. And that was enough. Enough to unravel everything. I spent the car ride home in suffocating silence. My husband barely noticed. He was still on a high from the night, rambling about connections, promotions, everything that didn't involve me. I nodded when I had to, forced a smile when he looked my way. But inside, I was unraveling. My lips still tingled from the kiss. My skin burned where his hands had touched me. My heart was caught in a relentless rhythm of what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? The moment I stepped inside our house, I felt the weight of it, of guilt, of consequence, of reality. I went straight to the shower, scrubbing at my skin, as if I could wash away what had happened. As if I could erase it. But no amount of hot water could cleanse what I had done. When I crawled into bed beside my husband, he didn't stir. He didn't reach for me. He hadn't done that in a long time. And yet, somehow, I had never felt more unfaithful. The next morning, everything felt off. The walls of our house felt too small, the air too thick. I moved through the routine, coffee, breakfast, cleaning like a ghost. My hands shook when I reached for the mug. I nearly dropped it. My husband was watching me. I felt his eyes before I even turned to look at him. Are you okay? The question made my stomach turn. I forced a small laugh. Yeah, just tired. A pause. He studied me longer than usual. I held my breath, waiting for him to say something else, for some flicker of suspicion to creep into his voice. But then his phone buzzed. And just like that, I disappeared from his world again. I avoided him after that night. No more stolen glances. No more conversations. If he entered a room, I left. If he sent a message, I didn't respond. But it didn't matter, because he didn't avoid me. At work functions, he still found his way to me. A smirk. A knowing glance. The brush of his hand as he walked past. Unfazed. Confident. Like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. Because I wasn't just avoiding him. I was avoiding myself. At home, my husband started acting differently. Subtle things at first. He started coming home earlier. Bringing me coffee in the morning. Asking how my day was. I should have been happy. I should have welcomed it. But it felt wrong. Like an overcorrection. Like he knew something. Like he was making up for something he had done. Or maybe he was just sensing the shift. The distance. Because the guilt had settled in. It had taken root inside me, growing, twisting, making it impossible to be the person I was before. I could feel it in the way I avoided eye contact. In the way my stomach clenched whenever he touched me. In the way I felt like a stranger in my own home, my own marriage, my own life. Every conversation with my husband felt rehearsed. Every laugh felt forced. And worst of all, when he kissed me, I felt nothing. Because my mind was still on that rooftop. Still on him. Still on the moment I could never take back. I kept telling myself that I could forget. That if I buried it deep enough, if I pretended it never happened, I could move forward. That one mistake didn't have to define me. But guilt doesn't work like that. It lingers. It festers. It turns every quiet moment into a mirror, forcing you to stare at the truth you don't want to see. I had never been a liar. But now, every word I spoke felt like one. Every "I love you" to my husband felt hollow. Every touch felt foreign. Every moment of silence between us felt dangerous. Because silence is where the truth grows. And the truth was this: I didn't know if I had ruined my marriage, or if I had just woken up to the fact that it was already broken. I kept replaying the past. The years of neglect. The emotional distance. The nights spent lying awake next to a man who didn't even notice I wasn't sleeping. The slow fade of love, so gradual I hadn't even realized I was starving until someone else fed me attention. Did I cross a line? Yes. But hadn't he crossed one first? Not with another woman. Not with betrayal in the traditional sense. But with indifference. With the slow, cruel way he had let me fade into the background of his life, like a painting on a wall, something pretty, something constant, but never really seen. And that's what terrified me the most. Not that I had cheated, but that deep down I didn't regret it. Not the way I should have. Because for one moment on that rooftop, in that kiss, I had felt something real. Something electric. Something alive. And now? Now, I felt nothing but fear. Because what if my husband found out? What if that woman from the rooftop said something? What if the boss, so calm, so composed, so utterly unbothered by the weight of what we had done, told him? What if this was a game to him? A pattern? What if I wasn't the first? The thought made me sick. Had I mistaken manipulation for affection? Had I been so desperate for attention that I had fallen into the oldest trap in the world? A powerful man who knew exactly how to make a woman feel special, just long enough to get what he wanted? And worse, had I let it happen? Had I wanted it to? I gripped the edge of the bathroom sink, staring at my reflection under the harsh white lights. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. This wasn't who I was. And yet, it was who I had become. I had two choices: confess and destroy everything. Or bury it and live with the weight of it pressing down on me forever. I didn't know which was worse. But I knew one thing for certain. No matter which path I chose, nothing would ever be the same again. I keep asking myself the same question over and over. Should I tell my husband the truth? Should I lay it all out, confess everything, and brace myself for the storm that will follow? Or should I keep this secret buried? Take it to the grave and pretend that night, that kiss, never happened? I don't know what's worse, the guilt of hiding it or the destruction that would come from telling him. Because if I do, if I look him in the eyes and say the words out loud, I know I can never take them back. I know it will break something that can't be fixed. And maybe that's what scares me the most. Not just losing him, but losing the idea of us. The version of our marriage that still exists in his mind, in the life we built together, in the lie I'd be shattering. Because he doesn't see the cracks the way I do. He doesn't know how long I've been drowning. And if I tell him the truth, it won't just be about this. It won't just be about one kiss. It will be about all of it. The years of distance. The nights of silence. The way I have felt so invisible for so long that I barely remember who I was before. If I tell him the truth, I'm admitting that our marriage isn't what he thinks it is. That maybe it never was. And that's not just betrayal. That's devastation. So tell me, what would you do? If you were in my shoes, would you confess? Would you risk everything in the life, the love, the stability for a mistake? Or would you keep the secret? Live with the guilt? Pretend it never happened, knowing that every time you looked at your spouse, you'd be carrying something they could never suspect? I need to know. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what should I do? What would you do? Because sometimes, the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers. Sometimes they come from the people we trust the most. And sometimes they come from ourselves. If you found this story shocking, don't forget to like and subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. Because trust me, you won't believe what happens next.